Hamilton Lewis. I'm the president and chief executive officer of First Guaranty Bank Shares, which is the holding company, and First Guaranty Bank, which is headquartered in Hammond, Louisiana. We have about $1.5 billion in assets.
Suppose you represent Hammond. You're one of the representatives that represent Hammond. And guess what you got in Hammond? The two main drivers are North Oaks Hospital and Southeastern University.
You have a very diverse population from northwest Louisiana, which is very Protestant, very conservative, to New Orleans, which is just the opposite. And then you have southwest Louisiana with the Cajun influence. It's a very diverse population, but all real good, hard-working, solid people.
Tangipahoa is where the bank got its foothold. As I said, it was 1934 when we started, so very close to when Southeastern started back in 1925. And we've grown in this community for all those years, and it's just like anywhere else. When you've been somewhere for so long, you start to establish roots and really connect. Everyone here knows just about everyone else. There's not too many businesses or people that we don't know.
Try to, as I said, help young people get started in the community. We try to help businesses get started. We realize that if our communities don't flourish and prosper, then we aren't. So we do everything we can to make our communities healthy.
I would say definitely having been started here and been around so long, we've grown with the parish and with the university and everything. That's what really is near and dear to us as far as Hammond's concerned. Now we've added on in our other markets, and there's special things about those markets as well. I mean, in our Abbeville market, which is our branch that's a little bit south of Lafayette, you've got farming relationships that go back just as long. And so that's a near and dear situation there, because our loan officer out in Abbeville is very close to those farmers and knows them very well, goes back with them maybe 30, 40 years that he's been knowing these people. And so you develop those relationships in your community, not just with the businesses, but with the people behind the business. And that's what's most important to us and in all the areas we serve.
One, small business loans, the velocity with which the money cycles through the community is much faster than it is with large business loans, okay? So it's better for the community. And that's not only the heart of the banking business, that's the future of the banking business.
The idea behind the multiplier effect that Mr. Reynolds described is that an initial change in economic activity results in other rounds of spending. To demonstrate the impact of First Guaranty's small business loan portfolio, our group conducted an economic impact study using loan-level data that was provided by the bank. We used an input-output model that employs parameters which are estimated by the Bureau of Economic Analysis for a linear production function. The model uses RIMS-2 multipliers to delineate how the revenue, wages, and jobs created in one area would multiply across different sectors of the economy. We found that First Guaranty's small business loan portfolio is responsible for creating new sales of more than $1 billion. Additionally, the portfolio can be credited with creating 8,670 jobs, as well as more than $300 million worth of taxable earnings.
If it weren't for First Guaranty Bank, we wouldn't have a business. We went to 2 or 3 different banks before this. My wife and I, we actually worked at the bank for several years. She was customer service, and I was a teller. And we went to that bank, and they gave us a list of requirements we had to meet. And as we met each requirement, there was another requirement we had to have. So eventually they just came down and said we wouldn't be able to do it because we had no business experience. Other requirements, like a list of who the kids were going to be and the parents we were going to have, and ultimately they told us no as well. And then eventually we called First Guaranty.
One of the first I was involved in, I would say. It was 11 years ago, and they brought the deal to us, and I was able to do the transaction and what they wanted to do and come up with a structure that worked for them and worked for the bank, and presented my findings to our senior loan officer at the time, and he said this looks great, that'll work for us and it works for them. So we were able to handle that credit, and it's been a great performing credit ever since. We're glad we were able to help them.
Been converting our assets from lower yielding securities into higher yielding loans. Several years ago, we did just the opposite because loan rates were way down, security returns were up good, so we moved assets from loans into securities. Now we're moving them the other way.
One key to the bank's loan growth campaign was their participation in the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Small Business Lending Fund from 2011 to 2015.
The SBLF program, the Small Business Lending Fund, it was designed by the Treasury as a way to inject capital into the banking institutions during the Great Recession. And the way it works is they identified 4 target classes of loans: owner-occupied commercial real estate, commercial and industrial loans, ag loans, and farmland. And they classified those as small business loans. So as long as you were within those categories, primarily, and then you met the stipulations of revenues less than $50 million, the total loan relationship $10 million or less, then you would qualify for that program. And so you were able to participate and get credit for those particular transactions. What they had us do every quarter is calculate what they called a quarterly supplemental report. And in this report, we showed the total dollar value of the loans we've generated in those categories against what our historical dollar value was of the loans in those categories, so that we could show our growth overall since the inception and taking the SBLF funds. In our situation, we entered the program, or most banks entered the program, on the back end of the Great Recession. We didn't want to have to go through any more credit problems again. And so we chose, if it didn't work, if it didn't make sense from a credit standpoint, it wasn't worth doing to try to get the dividend. We just avoided it entirely and looked for other opportunities. We were fortunate enough that we found many, many opportunities through our lending team's efforts and through everybody just pitching in and getting out in the communities and saying, you know, here we are, we've got money to lend. Our advertisement said we had money to lend, and we did a large amount of advertising for the SBLF program specifically.
Business Lending Fund is also the Smart Business Lending Fund, as First Guarantee Bank opens the door for loans.
There is no better launching platform than small business. So we're 100% committed to that part of it.
Main thing, the message we put out there is that we're going to do what's best for the shareholders, and taking on riskier loans or chasing yield or something like that isn't always what's best. It's just having a good, solid core business and doing what's got you here and then continuing to adapt for the future.